Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to Trip Talks. This is the show where I interview successful e commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today I'm really excited to welcome Jeremy Simon to the show. Jeremy is one of the co founders of 3D Universe. 3D Universe is a company dedicated to making 3D printing and digital fabrication accessible to professionals as well as everyday people. And Jeremy is also doing a really a different, exciting project, which is called e-NABLE Volunteer Community. And this is a community which prints 3D prosthetic devices like hands, arms, as well as other types of assistive devices, and really provide it free of charge to people in need all over the world. And today I'm going to ask Jeremy a few questions about his entrepreneurial journey, as well as his other project, the e-NABLE Volunteer Community. And yeah, so really looking forward to seeing some of the strategies and tactics that you have used to start and grow your business. So thank you again for joining me today at Trip Talks, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
Hi, Shashank. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it seems like you're really very deeply involved with the 3D printing community. Can you share a little bit about, you know, how did you get into it and what motivated you to start your business, the 3D Universe?
Sure. Well, my last business was a consulting company that I owned with a couple of others that was completely unrelated to what I'm doing now. We were focused on information security and learned a lot, had a lot of fun doing that, but I came to a point where I felt I wanted to spend more time with my family, and that was a job that was requiring a lot of long hours. So I sold my shares in that company, decided to take some time off and sort of figure out what I wanted to do next. And during that time off, this was back in 2012, I decided to get myself a desktop 3D printer. They were just becoming affordable at that time and very accessible. There were some good options becoming available. And I've always been sort of a technology buff. I really enjoy keeping up on the latest. And so the 3D printing really caught my attention. I got one and started, like most people do, sort of going on to sites like Thingiverse, where you can download all sorts of different objects for free, print them. And I was printing all sorts of interesting little things, just like you see behind me, to sit on your shelf. And that was a lot of fun. But then it wasn't long before I came across a design for a 3D printable prosthetic hand called at the time it was called the Robo Hand. And this just blew me away because I had never thought about the possibility of being able to 3D print something really functional like that, not just something decorative, but something that could not only serve a function, but in this case, really change somebody's life. And I continued to look into it and found my way to a group of people that was starting to work on a number of different open source designs that they were sharing with each other and building upon for 3D printable prosthetics, hands at first, and later got into arms as well. And this is what very quickly turned into what we now call the e-NABLE volunteer community, which you can learn about at enablingthefuture.org. And so I quickly got involved there, and I fell in love with it so quickly with what you can do. I found a gentleman in my local community. A lot of what we were doing in the early days of this volunteer community was making devices for children, because there was a particular challenge there, because insurance companies don't like to pay for what was very expensive for a prosthetic device for kids when they're going to outgrow them very quickly. And so kids especially had a hard time getting access to prosthetics. And so that's what e-NABLE was focused on in the beginning. But I met a full-grown adult in my community who was born with a limb difference. He was born missing most of one of his hands, and came to me and asked if I might be able to make a device for him. And this is a man who not only has this limb difference, but it was a particular challenge because he works as a box handler in a warehouse. So he really needs something functional that can hold up. And he actually was lucky enough to have been given one of those myoelectric devices that has a muscle sensor and has one of those, claws that opens when and contracts when you tense your muscles. And these things are expensive. He told me his cost over $40,000, but he didn't like it very much. It was very heavy and it didn't respond well. There were a lot of false positives where it would go off when he didn't want it to. And so I made him one of these 3D printed prosthetics. and he loved it. And he found that it worked much better than his very expensive device. He came back and sat down and talked with me on camera like we're doing now. And he
Mm,
talked to me after he had been using it for a while on his work, and he told me about it and why he liked it better. And I put that video on YouTube, thinking, that others might benefit from it. Surprisingly, it became a very popular video, got lots of attention, which led to Fox News inviting me on to have me as a guest on their show to talk about the work we were doing, and that led to some very rapid growth in e-NABLE because it got the word out there and let people know about what we're doing. So our
mm,
community very quickly started to grow, and we now have tens of thousands of volunteers all over the world, including a lot of schools that have gotten involved, hundreds of schools where they get their classrooms involved in making these and connecting with people that they can help. And we have about 200 chapters all over the world in all different countries that have gotten involved. And it's just been a wonderful community to be a part of. And it's been one of the most exciting things that I've seen done with 3D printing. And so that actually, I got involved with e-NABLE before I started my business, 3D Universe, because it was then that I really fell in love with the power of this technology and what it could be used for, and how if an ordinary guy like me, I know nothing about prosthetics, I know nothing
mm,
about I was new to 3D printing even, and yet
mm.
I was able to make one of these devices that changed somebody's life. And I went on to do this for a bunch of other people too. And that was so fulfilling, so rewarding, that I wanted to help others to sort of realize what a powerful technology this is. And so my wife and I and a partner of mine started 3D Universe mainly to be able to help others to sort of learn about this technology and understand all these exciting things that you can do with 3D printing and other digital fabrication technologies.
That's really awesome. That's really interesting. I mean, I have so many questions that are coming to my mind as you're going through it, but I guess where we can start is for anyone who doesn't know what's involved in 3D printing. So I'm assuming there's like this machine aspect, the 3D printer itself, but is the value really in the design? How exactly do you take something and actually able to print it? Can you walk me through the process of like, how would you actually print a 3D printed prosthetic limb
Absolutely.
through this?
Well, you are exactly right. It all starts with the design side, which can be very challenging. Luckily, we've had some very smart and capable people in our community, including engineers and 3D designers and professional occupational therapists and all kinds of different skill sets. And so we have been able to create some excellent designs. We have quite a few designs in our catalog. And the wonderful thing about e-NABLE is that every single design that's been created has been shared as an open source design freely, so that anybody can use it and anybody can take that design and build off of it and make
Hmm.
changes and make it better. But generally speaking, when you want to 3D print something, you have to first have a 3D design, which you can use CAD software for, computer aided design.
Hmm.
Lots of different CAD platforms out there. Some of the popular ones include things like Tinkercad, which is a free platform that you can use on the web. There's more advanced platforms like Autodesk Fusion 360, which also has some free licenses available. There's things like SolidWorks. There's all kinds of very popular 3D packages out there. Another popular one is Onshape that our community has been using, which also has some very powerful functionality available for free. So lots of CAD options to choose from, and you can use any CAD package that you like, whatever CAD software you prefer. You create your 3D design, you create your model, and you can do that using all sorts of different methods that are, depending on the CAD software you're using. Usually you're starting with primitive. So you create
Hmm.
a sphere or a block, and then you start carving away at it and putting channels through it, or, cutting away from it. And you start to create your model using these different tools. Once you have your model the way you want it, you export that model in a certain format that your 3D
Hmm.
printer is ready for. And
Hmm.
then there's another piece of software that you use, which is called slicing software. And
Hmm.
that's where you take your 3D model and you bring it into the slicing software. And here's where you tell the 3D printer how you want it to print your object. For example, normally when you're 3D printing an object, you don't need it to be solid. You don't need it to be
Hmm.
completely filled in on the inside. And so you can control how dense you want it to be, how much infill you want, how thick do you want the walls to be, how thin do you want each layer to be. There's all kinds of settings that you can control. And so you define those settings in the slicing software, and then you generate the print file and send it to the 3D printer, and it'll do whatever you told it to do. It'll take over from there and start printing. So that's the general process. Yeah.
So it seems that once you have the design, the CAD design, and I guess the mold of it, that design can be mass printed, not just through like a simple 3D printer, but someone could really take it and create many copies of it on an industrial basis, perhaps. So is that not something that bigger companies or industries, I mean, if prosthetic limbs is a requirement out there, and the only thing that is required is to have a design and you can create it, is it not possible to just create, just industrially print them and just give everybody a hand who does not have it at a much very low cost? So what is stopping people from really solving this problem for people who are missing limbs and so forth?
Sure. Well, it's an important question. We'll talk about it two ways. One in relation to the limb different community and the ones we're trying to help through e-NABLE, but also we'll talk about it a little bit more generally and how this applies to manufacturing in general. So with regards to e-NABLE and what we're trying to do, you're exactly right. Theoretically, we have a lot of people out there with 3D printers, and even in our community, we have a lot of people that are ready to help, that are ready to produce these devices. And we know, statistically speaking, that there are a lot of people out there that need our help. There are a lot of people that have lost limbs or were born with a limb difference that have not been able to get help or can't afford help. The problem is a lot of them don't know about us, and we haven't done a good enough job of getting the word out there to them or connecting with those people in those communities. We're doing a lot of work to try to connect with other organizations that work with the limb different community. There are a lot of good organizations out there already, and if we can connect with them and they can let their members know about us, then maybe we can help more people. We're trying to do a better job of improving what we have on our websites and the way that we're talking about what e-NABLE is and how we can help people. There's a lot of work to be done in how do you find those people and get the word to them about how you can help them, and then connecting them with the volunteers that can help. So we've made great progress, but there's a lot more work to do. But taking it a little bit more generally, you open up a very important discussion about, well, when somebody wants to bring a new product to market, why can't they just 3D print a whole bunch of them? And they can to a certain point. And so we're seeing a lot of businesses starting to do this. That's why 3D printing has become so popular. Mostly we've seen it be about speeding up and reducing the cost of bringing new products to market. You can prototype new designs much more quickly and much less expensively than sending that design out to somebody else for prototyping and then waiting for them to get it back to you. That's very expensive and it's very slow, but that's what companies had to do in the past. Now they can do that in-house, and they can, not only can they get it done much more quickly and more cheaply, but that facilitates a lot more creative exploration of ideas. You're able to iterate more quickly and try things. You're not afraid to to take chances, because if it doesn't work, you can just do another one in a matter of hours or a day or two. And so it really facilitates rapid development of ideas and product prototypes. Now, it's good for small quantities, 3D printing. It doesn't do as well when you get into much, much bigger quantities. So if you want to make, tens of something or dozens of something, a 3D printer can do an excellent job for you. If you need to make 10,000 of something, it's probably going to be more cost effective to outsource it and do injection molding. But there's a lot of ground in between those, right? Where maybe you need to make hundreds of something. And there's a big gray area there. 3D printing probably can help. There are also other digital fabrication technologies that can help as well. Like, for example, we do a lot with desktop forming. 3D forming is now another popular technology. So vacuum forming and pressure forming. So you can 3D print an object, use that as a template to then create a form using pressure forming, and then use that to cast copies of the mold that you've created. And very quickly, you can now duplicate your object. And that way you can make hundreds and hundreds of something that would take a very long time to do on a 3D printer. But that's, again, something that small companies can now do in-house very affordably.
Very interesting. Very interesting. What is the cost involved in printing like one of these prosthetic hands? Given that it's on a volunteer basis, and you're giving it away in a way. I'm
Yeah,
assuming the cost is really just the material. What kind of material is used, and like what does it cost actually to?
it is. So the cost depends on a number of different things. It depends on the type of device you're making. Making a hand device, for example, takes less material than making an arm device. So that factors in. It depends on what type of material you want to use. There are different options you can work with. You can make a device with, for example, PLA, which is a very popular material and very inexpensive. The problem we found with PLA, we're helping people all over the world. And in some areas where they have a hotter climate, PLA actually doesn't hold up well in higher temperatures. And we found that those devices will start to deform. So as a community, we have been pointing people towards PETG as a recommended material. And we like to use PETG for our devices. It's still a very eco-friendly material, but it's a lot stronger and it holds up in higher temperatures than PLA. But cost-wise, it's not a huge difference. So generally speaking, and it also depends on how big the device is. If you're making a device for a very small child, that costs less than one for a large adult. But on average, we say that it costs about $25 to $50 US dollars on average to make a device. And I'm including not only the 3D printing material that you're going to use, but also the other assembly materials that you need to put one together. Because you need some screws, some Velcro straps, some medical grade foam padding, some cords. There's some other things that go into putting one together. And all of that together, somewhere in the range of $25 to $50 on average. And we've been very lucky to have volunteers that have been willing to absorb those costs. And so they pay for that out of pocket, and the devices are given free of charge to those who need them.
So it's almost like kind of a donation model, So
It's like
somebody buy,
crowdsourcing. Yeah, it's like
yeah.
crowdsourcing prosthetics.
So somebody buys this machine, and they're learning about 3D printing. They want to create some things, and this is one thing that they can create, and of course it can be very useful to someone who's missing a limb, and it doesn't cost them a huge amount of money. So I guess it makes them for they feel good about creating something that helps other people, and in the process they learn, and
That's right.
being creative and everything. So that's very interesting.
That's an important part of it. And what I found is what that led to also. Not only do you have this wonderful way that you can contribute and help change people's lives, but you start to sort of look at things around you differently when you get into 3D printing, and especially when you start creating your own designs. When you learn some 3D modeling and you learn how to create something from scratch, from an idea, you really start to look at things differently, and you're going through your day-to-day life, and you start to see things and realize, even around your own home, that, oh, I could make that better if I had a little such and such that did this or that. And you start having ideas of how you can improve things around you, or maybe fix something that was broken that you couldn't find a part for. And you start improving things in your own home, in your own office. And that can be so much fun and so rewarding when you do something like that totally on your own, that you created from scratch, brought it to life with this machine, put it in place, and see that it works just right. It's really a wonderful experience.
And I think that could be very useful to entrepreneurs. Like, somebody looks at a product, they're not completely satisfied with it. And, they think of an idea. I guess from an entrepreneurial perspective, if you want to bring something to life, you maybe you don't want to, learn the whole thing. Maybe you just want to connect with someone who is, a shop that is already doing 3D printing,
Sure.
and help, get their help in this. But I think like in your shop 3D universe, like, do you see a lot of people, the people who are coming to buy your products? Um, are there some of those who are entrepreneurial type, or what kind of people do you think are actually buying
Oh,
buying these products?
absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of customers that have either started businesses using 3D printing or have been able to advance their existing businesses by bringing 3D printing into it in a number of different ways. We have some that are actually selling 3D printed parts as end use products to their customers. For example, we have some that are in the automotive industry that are using 3D printing to produce parts that they sell directly to their customers, things that have to withstand certain temperatures inside of a, under the hood of a vehicle. We have some that are making lighting fixtures for vehicles. We have some that make custom mounts for police vehicles. There's all kinds of different things being done. And then another very large segment that we see is education. We have a lot of schools and libraries and maker spaces that buy from us because this is, especially here in the United States, it's become almost indispensable as a part of the education process, which I'm thrilled to see because these students, when they get into the workplace, they're going to be dealing with these technologies. So it's wonderful that they're learning them as they go through school. And so we see a lot of schools investing in more and more 3D printing and other digital fabrication tech. And that's through all levels, K through 12, all the way up through the university and post-grad level. We're seeing different types of 3D printing being used for different reasons. And then in the professional sector, well-established businesses, everything from large companies, like automotive, aerospace, product design companies that are starting to realize, like I said before, that they can pick up the speed of how they develop new products. They can test ideas in-house. Government entities and even the military, it's a little controversial with some, but one of the reasons that the military loves 3D printing is that they can test out ideas and prototype things internally without having to worry about confidentiality. They don't have to worry about sharing their designs outside of their internal teams. So there's a lot of different reasons that people go to 3D printing, but we see it across almost every different industry at this point. It plays into obviously architecture. They're using it to show off different architectural models. The medical field, they're using it for surgical models and planning and actual implants and all sorts of other things. We even get into bioprinting here. We have a 3D bioprinter that you can use for experimenting with 3D printing, cellular structures and biomaterials and all kinds of advanced possibilities that can be explored there. There's all sorts of different aspects of it being explored across all different industries, which is part of what's exciting.
So on your shop, I see you're selling 3D printers. You're selling all other kind of accessories and materials and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about how this came about? Are you selling these products from other manufacturers who create these machines, and you're basically
That's right.
selling them to consumers?
That's right.
Uh,
When I started the business, what I realized myself when I got started with 3D printing is that you can very quickly become overwhelmed with the number of options that there are. There are so many different 3D printers on the market, and trying to figure out which is going to give me a good experience and do what I need and fit my budget and all that it can be quite difficult. And so we wanted to create something that really would help people to make that journey easier, to help them find something that would fit them. And we consider ourselves to be very consultative. We don't do, salespeople here. We have conversations with people. And if we feel like there's a solution out there that's a good fit for them, even if it's not something that we offer, we'll point them in the right direction. We really just want to help people find how these technologies can benefit them. And that's what we're here to help with. So our store represents sort of a very filtered down list of all the different products that we've tested. These are the ones that made the cut. These are the ones that I felt had a really good experience right from out of the box all the way through how it works and the kind of support that you get after the fact. And these are the ones that I feel our customers are going to have a good experience with. So it's a very carefully selected list of products that we offer that we're always adding to.
So someone like, someone who's just getting started with 3D printing, maybe they read about it and they just want to test the idea out. What among all the products that you're selling, like what is the best way for like a beginner to start with 3D printing? Is there like a specific machine that works well for beginners? And what advice would you give to a beginner? Let's say, even an entrepreneur who has an idea and they want to just test it out themselves. Like,
Sure.
how can they get started?
Well, that's why I really like the one-on-one approach that we take, because as much as I'd like to say that there's, this is the machine that you want for a new user, I don't think it's that simple. I think it really
Mhm.
depends on, well, not everyone has the same budget as a beginner. Do you have a couple $100s to work with, or do you have a couple $1,000s to work with? That's going to change your options. What kinds of things are you thinking about doing? What do you want to be able to do with this machine? And when I hear you talk about the kinds of things that you want to be able to print, that leads me down the path of what kind of printer you want to be able to do that, what kinds of materials you might want to be able to work with, and then I can make some recommendations for specific printers. Generally speaking, I will say that from what we offer, the Creality printer line has been very popular for new users. These are very inexpensive printers that are, for the most part, kits that you put together yourself, but they're very easy to put together. They're partially assembled, and you just sort of finish it up. And they're a great way for people to get started. Like anything in life, you kind of get what you pay for, and there are trade-offs. When you get a very inexpensive machine, maybe a little bit less reliable than something that you spend 10 times as much on, but there's a very large online community there that can help when issues arise. And so there's all kinds of different options that you could look at, but Creality is one that we see very popular with new users because it's a very inexpensive way to get started, see if it's something that you want to go forward with, and then maybe you can upgrade to something else down the road. But we also have other lines. And for example, the Ultimaker printer line that a lot of people are familiar with that's by far our most popular printer line. It's more expensive, but we do have quite a few users that are getting into 3D printing. They're new users, and yet they want to go for something that they know will be reliable. And they do buy an Ultimaker. So like I said, it depends on your budget and it depends on what's important to you. Some people are a lot more comfortable doing some tinkering and doing some troubleshooting if needed, and getting under the hood if they need to, and maybe making changes to the code. Other people, no, I just want it to work. So it really depends on the kind of person that we're talking to in terms of what we'd recommend.
So, as a business itself, can you share about? I mean, it's an e-commerce business.
It is.
So, when you started it, like, what kind of? I mean, whenever somebody starts a business, because something like this, I'm assuming requires a good amount of investment. Like, if you're purchasing machines to sell,
Mhm.
that may require a good amount of investment. Like, how did you know that this is a business that's actually going to be successful? I mean, I'm assuming it's a for-profit business
It
that
is.
you're at the end of the day, it's going to be able to run like a successful business, make
That's
profit,
right.
and so forth.
Yeah,
Um, what was, can you talk a little bit about the business aspect of
sure.
this whole project?
Sure. I don't think you ever really know, do you? I mean, I guess I had a feeling. I feel like I have a pretty good business instinct at this point. I've owned and started several businesses throughout my career. And I guess I have a pretty good instinct for technology in particular and sort of where things seem to be going. So when I started following 3D printing in the news and started playing with it myself, I became quickly convinced that this is definitely going to be part of the future. I don't mind saying that I've always been sort of a sci-fi fan myself, always a sort of a Star Trek fan and that kind of thing. And so immediately for me, this brought back, ideas of replicators and, that sort of thing. And ultimately, that's where this is headed, right? I mean, that is a form of 3D printing. It just
Hmm.
happens to be at the molecular level in that case, and we're not there yet, but someday we'll get there, right? So this is
Hmm.
very exciting to me. And I knew that it was going to be important. And like I said, I wanted to be part of it. But then there were also a series of sort of nice accidents and having some good luck and things like that happen along the way. When we started the business, the 3D printer product line that we started with was the FlashForge line, which is another popular, inexpensive line. And because they were less expensive machines, yes, we had to bring in inventory, but it wasn't a huge out-of-pocket investment to do that. We didn't have to have hundreds of them on hand. We just had to have, a handful of each model to get started. And then as we sold them, we bought more for inventory. And so we actually were able to start the business with a total out-of-pocket investment of $27,000, believe it or not. That's
Okay.
all it cost us to start out of pocket. And we were able to get things going quickly enough that we were able to, shortly thereafter, we were able to pay ourselves back on that initial investment, and we were running profitably from there. And so we kept a lot of the money in the business so that we were able to grow. We started to expand our product portfolio and get into other product lines. And as we're able to, as our financial assets grew, we were able to bring in more and more inventory and start to grow from there and start to expand our staff and offerings.
And your customer base, to me, it seems like, or maybe it's logical, is more B2B.
It is more
Rather,
B2B. It's not
yeah.
entirely B2B, but the majority of our business is B2B. I'd say probably 80% at least is B2B. And then we have some B2C.
And is it mostly a sales-based approach, or are you like marketing first and then you attract
Yeah,
people and then
actually,
you do the consultation?
Actually, I think that's where we're a little bit unique. We do almost nothing in terms of sales. We actually go out of
Okay.
our way not to do any selling. Even when people call us, I've never liked salespeople very much. I don't like people trying to push things on me. And so I don't want to do that to anyone else. We don't have salespeople. We don't do any outbound cold calling or anything like that. We feel like what we do best is putting good content out there on our blog, on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, I started the blog and the YouTube channel before I ever started 3D Universe as a for-profit business. I started at first just as a blog. That's why our domain is 3duniverse.org,
Mm.
because we started as just a blog to help share this information with people, and we've kept that going. So what we do is we put together a lot of really good videos to help educate people and show them the cool projects we're doing and what you can do with these things. And we put that out there and we let people find that. And if they find that and they say, yeah, that's something I think I could benefit from, they'll reach out to us and then we'll have a discussion. We trust that they'll find their way to us if we have something they need. So we try not to bother people too much with a lot of traditional sales and trying to go after people. We try to put out as much good educational content as we can and draw people into us using, good search engine optimization. We do a lot of paid advertising on Google to help bring attention to us. We do paid advertising on YouTube. So it's not that we don't invest in that, but we try to make it content based to try to make sure that we're bringing people to us that we can really be of value to.
And is this really right now the main market or your main audience is in the US, or do you also see, because I mean, creative people are everywhere and who are
Oh,
interested in
absolutely.
these kind of things, which, but I'm assuming it's probably more directed in the Western nations rather than
It is.
developing. Yeah.
The vast majority of our business is focused within the United States. We service the entire United States. We ship all over the country, but most of our products we ship only in the United States because of restrictions with our partners. They have other resellers that handle other territories. So the whole world definitely has these needs, but I think other areas are pretty well covered. We handle the United States. That's not the case across the board. There are some product lines that we represent for all of North America, including Canada. There are other products that we do sell globally. Most importantly, the things that we do for e-NABLE. So, for example, we produce assembly materials kits for those prosthetic devices to make it easier for people to help out there. So these kits that have all of those materials that you need to make one of these devices, all the screws, the Velcro, the padding, all those other things that I mentioned, all in one little kit that you can buy. And we've shipped thousands of those all over the world because nobody else makes them. We make those all here. So there are certain things that we ship internationally, but most of what we do, especially when it comes to the machines, the printers themselves, those are US based. We ship in the US.
What does your team look like right now?
Well, we've taken the approach of trying to keep a pretty small team and rely very heavily on technology and automation to be able to do quite a lot with a small crew. And so we currently, our team is made up of 4 people internally that handle operations and sales and support. Myself and my wife are the 2 owners of the organization, and we have 2 other employees that work with us for our marketing and blogging and operational support on the back end. But aside from those internal employees, we also have our whole warehouse team because we use 3PL, third-party logistics, which I imagine you might have a question or two about. And so that's a whole separate team. And we have several dozen people on the warehouse team because, of course, those aren't our employees. Those are handled separately, but they are very much a part of our team in terms of how we work with them. We work with them every day, dozens of times throughout the day. We work very closely with them. So I include them when I think of our team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, are there, I mean, at the end of the day, this, you're selling a product and it's an e-commerce business. Like, are there any peculiarities for this e-commerce business when you're shipping out these products to consumers? Like, does it have to be handled in a certain way,
Oh,
or
yes.
can you
Yeah,
talk a little bit about?
we learned that the hard way over the years. I think probably the most painful lesson that we learned was when Ultimaker launched the Ultimaker S5, which, if you're not familiar with it, is their current sort of flagship 3D printer, and it's a larger desktop 3D printer. It's the largest of the ones that they offer, and so it ships in a fairly large box. It's sort of the largest box that you can ship via ground shipping before you go to freight on a pallet. And
Okay.
so it ships via normal ground services. Well, when we started shipping those out from our warehouse, we were shipping them using UPS ground. And the first 5 consecutive shipments that went out, the first 5 printers all got damaged during transit. And I mean badly damaged, like they were dropped and crushed in on a side. And we had to file claims through UPS, and it took us, I don't remember how long, a year and a half, I think, to get reimbursed on all of those. We quickly switched our shipping for those particular units over to FedEx ground and never had an issue since. And we've shipped hundreds of these things since then. So it was pretty amazing to us what a difference it was in terms of how carefully some of these different shipping carriers handle the larger packages. Other things UPS does fine with, but this particular larger, heavier package, they did not do well with. So that was a lesson learned. But there have been a lot of other things. When the first thing that you think about when you're in an e-commerce business like us is this product something that we are going to have to stock in our warehouse, or is it something that you can drop ship? Because there are benefits and drawbacks of both. So we do a little bit of both. We have some products that we stock in our warehouse and we ship to our customers as sales come in. There are other products that we drop ship directly through our partners, and we just send them the order and they ship it out. And the benefit of drop shipping is you don't have to stock anything. You don't have those upfront costs. And there's additional costs for stocking things in your warehouse. We pay storage fees, we pay the pick and pack fees whenever they have to send out an order. So there's other costs of doing that. But on the other hand, usually, and it depends, it varies from one partner to another, from one manufacturer to the next, but a lot of times if they offer both options, they'll give you better margins if you're willing to stock it in your warehouse compared to drop shipping. So if you bring it into your warehouse, you can make a little bit more margin that way. So that's the benefit of having something in your warehouse. The benefit of drop shipping, like I said, you don't have that upfront investment. You can just have them shipped on demand. The downside of that we found, though, is that often if a particular manufacturer offers drop shipping, they often tend to want as many resellers as they can find. And because it's so easy to drop ship, you often find that there's a lot of competition. So if there's one product, I'll give you an example, MakerBot, which is another product that we offer, but it can be drop shipped and they open it up to just about anybody that wants to sell them. And so there's a lot of other people out there that sell them. And as a result, we don't sell nearly as much of that as we do the other products that not everybody offers. So you got to think about that and think about what's best. Do we want to drop ship this? What we've found over the years as a certain, not necessarily a formula, because it's not always the same, but usually what we find works best is we try to evaluate products carefully. We try to test them and make sure it's really a good product that we want to offer. And we try to really get to know the manufacturer, make sure it feels like it's going to be a good partnership. But if we want to move forward, ideally, we try to start with drop shipping, because what that does is it lets us just get going with it quickly and easily, no upfront investment. We put it up on our site, we start selling it, and that gives us some time to see what the demand is. And we start to see how many orders we have on a monthly basis. And it usually starts slow with a new product because you have to build awareness of that product and you have to build demand, which takes time. So it usually starts slow, but after a few months, you start to see a pattern and you start to see what the demand is and how many you're selling per month. And now you know how many you're going to sell next month because it's pretty repeatable. And at that point, we then go back and start looking at buying inventory and bring it into our warehouse, because then maybe we can get better margins and we have less risk at that point, because now we know that, we're going to sell them. It's not taking so much of a chance. So that's what we like to do, is we like to start with drop shipping and then move over to stocking once we know what our monthly sales are like.
So to me, it seems like, I mean, there are competitors in the marketplace that you are competing with. So this is not completely a unique product out there.
That's
So
right.
your value proposition really the education part of it? What you can, or how seamlessly you can enable an individual or an organization to start using this product? How do you describe what your value proposition is?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. Number one, we I think are very easy to work with. We've gone out of our way to keep things very easy from a process standpoint. So when an organization wants to work with us, we don't make them mess around with credit applications and all that. We make it very easy to get them set up and get on net 30 terms and send us their purchase orders, and we'll get the orders entered for them. We're very we'll make it very easy for the purchasers, and our customers like that. Um, Another thing is our support and that consultative approach that I talked about. We are always here. When you call, you can always talk to a person. You're not going to be talking to some overseas help desk team. You're talking to us. You're usually talking to one of the owners, and you're talking to people that are using these machines on a day-to-day basis extensively. We've run into whatever issues you might have run into already, and we can help you to work through them. We're very, very familiar with these technologies. So I think that experience of how we work with our customers, both before the sale and then after the sale, is a big, big part of why our customers like working with us. We really focus on personal attention and sort of direct human contact as much as we can.
Definitely. So, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner yourself, like what do you see as the future vision for this business? Like, of course, you probably want to get the name, the whole idea of 3D printing more well known, not just in North America, but all over the world. But how do you see your business growing or your idea growing in the future?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to say that my primary mission and goals really remain the same as when I started the business, and that is to just help share these very powerful technologies with as many people as I can. And along the way, of course, make sure that we're keeping food on the table, which we've had no problem doing so far. So essentially, our plan is more of the same, but not too quickly. We don't want to grow as fast as we can. I am not in any way trying to build the next multi-billion-dollar company. I don't even want anything like that. That's not the kind of lifestyle that I want. I don't want a business that's going to consume every moment of my day. I built this company in a way that would allow for a very good work-life balance so that I could continue to spend time with my family. I don't want this business to take over. And so we have been very happy to see that we have had continual growth year over year, but slow and steady growth, not ridiculous, crazy growth. And I want to keep it that way. I want to keep slow, steady growth. I want to keep adding to our product portfolio because there are so many wonderful products out there. We just need more time to keep testing them and find the best ones to bring to our product portfolio, and continue to reach out to more and more people that we can help. Yeah.
Definitely. I always ask this question, and I know you mentioned one failure or mistake around your machine is getting broken. But are there, since you've started this business, was there any big mistake or lessons learned or failures that that you learned from and other entrepreneurs can learn from your experience?
Well, so many of them, I'm sure, after 10 years of this. Thinking of one or two to highlight is always the challenge on the spot. But I think of a lot of little ones. One that comes to mind is really being careful about the partnerships that you get into. Don't just get into a partnership because they're willing to do business with you. Make sure that there are shared values, that the partnership is mutually beneficial, that both sides of the partnership are prepared to work at making the partnership be successful and invest time and energy into it, because those are the ones that will really work, and grow and help you grow the business. Align yourself with worthy causes. The fact that we have aligned ourselves with the e-NABLE volunteer community has actually worked to our benefit. Companies and organizations and individuals like working with companies that are doing good things. And so when we tell companies about the kind of work that we do with e-NABLE and the kind of teaching work that we do and other kinds of charitable work that we've done, they like to use that as a reason to do business with us instead of, maybe 2 or 3 other companies that can offer them the same product at the same price, but they don't have that particular aspect to their organization. What else? Lessons learned.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
those
good
are
enough.
some that come to mind.
That's awesome. So now I'm going to move on to our rapid fire segment. And in this segment, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you have to answer them in one or 2 words or a sentence or so.
Oh,
So the
wow.
first one
Okay.
is one book recommendation for entrepreneurs or business professionals, and why?
Oh gosh, I know I'm supposed to give a book recommendation that's some kind of a business book or something technology or 3D printing, but honestly, I don't do a lot of that kind of reading.
Okay.
This is going to be a very weird answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and say the Bhagavad Gita is a personal
Okay.
favorite. Okay, I know it's considered a religious piece, but I have found it to be an immensely inspirational and helpful guide in my personal life and my work, and so it's been a personal favorite of mine.
Cool, cool. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is a good one. I don't necessarily, I look at it as a work of philosophy rather than
I would
religious book.
agree. I would agree.
But,
More than that, yes.
an innovative product or idea in the current e-commerce, retail, or tech landscape that you feel excited about?
New products, did you say?
Any new product or idea in e-commerce, retail, or tech?
Well, so here I will focus on the 3D printing side of things that we've been talking about. We're very excited about the 3D printing of houses that's starting to happen, architectural 3D printing, the way they're starting to actually 3D print full scale houses. We think that's very exciting, and we think there's going to be a lot more of that. My wife comes from Romania. That's where she grew up, which has a lot of impoverished areas that have problems with housing. And so she's also very excited to see what's happening there.
And the difference there is that you just need a much bigger 3D printer,
A
or
much bigger printer, and you're printing with
okay,
different materials. You're usually using some kind of cement or something like that. Yeah.
wow. A business or productivity tool or software that you would recommend, or a productivity tip?
Okay. There are quite a few of them, but one that I use every single day is called Workflowy,
Okay.
WORKFLOWY.com. It's an outline and collaboration tool, very easy tool for taking notes in an outline format, sharing those with your team, doing collaborative note taking and that kind of thing. I use it to keep track of all my notes, all of my to-do items and everything like that.
So is it kind of like Evernote, or?
Very much like Evernote, except that it's entirely cloud-based. It's all in your browser, and they have mobile apps for it. And it's completely free of charge. They have paid plans available, but we use the free version, which is fully functional. So we
Okay.
found it to be a great tool.
Another startup or business in e-commerce, retail, or tech that you think is currently doing great?
Another startup.
Or business?
Okay. I'll highlight one of my customers, RE Suspension. They're in the automotive industry, in the motorsports industry, resuspension.com. And they make suspension solutions for those that are into motorsports racing, both professional and non-professional. But I mention them because they're one of those that have really embraced 3D printing, and they've brought in a number of 3D printers, and they've found ways of using it to both prototype parts that might be produced differently later, but they're also 3D printing end-use parts that they sell to their customers, like little piston trays and things like that, that they found they can actually 3D print for themselves and ship them right out to their customers who value them as a tool in their workshop. So they're using them for all kinds of interesting things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A peer entrepreneur or a business person whom you look up to or someone who inspires you?
I would say my my partner and co-founder with e-NABLE, John Schull. He's been a fantastic guy to work with. He was one of the ones that helped to start the e-NABLE volunteer community with me. And while he is still a very active part of the e-NABLE community 10 years later, he has also gone on to start another nonprofit, which I believe he is calling the Eco Restoration Alliance, which is focused on solving some of the very big challenges we have on a global scale for climate, and looking at what we can do to sort of crowdsource solutions for that. And it's a very exciting initiative he's working on there. So he's been a man that's always inspired me. He's always had very big ideas and is always looking to do things that can help make the world a better place and help people in it.
Final question. Best business advice you ever received or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
Best business advice. I'd say there's two things that I'd have to say, two things that have helped me the most. One is the importance of commitments. In business, everything is like a supply chain of commitments. Each person commits to the next person in the supply chain. And if any one of those person fails to follow through on their commitment, things break down. So the importance of following through on commitments is really critical. And the other thing that I think was really important is learning from a management point of view the importance of praising somebody in public, but always criticizing in private. You don't criticize
That's
people in front of others.
that's great advice. Well, Jeremy, those were all the questions that I had. Thank you so much again for sharing your passion for 3D printing and your business advice and some of your lessons learned. So yeah, thank you again. If somebody wants to watching this video wants to get in touch or check out your products, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, thank you again for having me, Shashant. And they can email us info@3duniverse.org, or they can visit our website, shop3duniverse.com.
Awesome. Thank you again, Jeremy, for joining Trip Talk. And yeah, really appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.